isu hangat pada waktu ini iaitu pengiktirafan UEC. Kementerian Pendidikan Malaysia sedia maklum bahawa pengiktirafan Unified Examination Certificate UEC sebagai kelayakan masuk ke universiti awam tersenarai sebagai salah satu perkara di dalam manifesto kerajaan yang baharu. KPM berpandangan perkara ini perlu dilihat secara menyeluruh ataupun holistik dan sewajarnya keputusan tidak dibuat secara terburu-buru.
承认独中统考文凭的课题，不管是国政政府到西蒙政府，看来都不止一里路。统考从1975年开始举办至今，已经迈入第43个年头，拖档多时。承认统考文凭与否，相关单位给予的理由与1996年教育法令条文、国家公共考试系统、国民团结、国文地位等息息相关。
Apa yang pasti, isu UEC ini bukan sekadar isu peperiksaan semata-mata. Ia turut melibatkan isu undang-undang, isu identiti nasional dan juga isu perpaduan.
而承认统考文凭是华社的母语权利和官方政府的角力战，教育问题还是国家语言政策问题呢？
各位观众朋友，欢迎收看我们今天的 On the Hot Seat。在我还没有展开我们今天的访谈之前呢，还是要提醒各位观众朋友，不管你们是第一次收看我们的节目，还是常客，就节目进行的过程当中呢，我们欢迎各位向我们的这2位嘉宾提问。但是呢，就是你也可以用任何语文来提问。我们的制作人在适当的时段呢，会把你的题目，就是由我来发问。转交由我来发问。那事不宜迟，那我们就展开今天晚上这个承认统考文凭无尽头的拉锯战今天的访谈。Good evening, both Dr. Kwa and Professor. So I think to talk about UEC, we need to understand what is it about. Maybe we can maybe Dr. Kwa can give us a little bit general understanding of UEC qualification. How would you actually introduce it or explain it to someone who is not very familiar with the UEC qualification?
Well, the UEC stands for the Unified Certificate Examination Certificate, and
Yes.
it is the school leaving certificate of the 60 Malaysian independent Chinese secondary schools in Malaysia. And so for some time there was no unified certificate, and in 1975 the Dong Jiao
Yes.
decided to set a unified certificate for all the Chinese schools in the country, so that they could have a standard source of evaluation, and so they started in 1975. At that time, the education minister was the present Prime Minister, Dr. Mahathir,
Okay.
and he wasn't very happy with the Dong Jiao for starting this examination. And the leaders of Dong Jiao, including the late Lim Fong Seng, the chairman of Dong Zhong,
Yes.
the chairman of Jiao Zhong, Sim Mui, and his assistant Sim Mui, Lu Tingyi,
Yes.
was summoned to Parliament,
Okay.
and the Prime Minister, the Education Minister at the time, Dr. Mahathir, said, you better not carry out this examination, or else, and that was it. And he said, that is all, meaning, and they thought they were going to at least have the
discussion.
They thought they would at least be given tea, as part of the. They weren't giving any tea. They said, stop it, or else you may go now, So that was it. Very
So
rude.
they were just
very rude.
dismissed.
They were just dismissed. So it was a very tense. I think at the time the Home Minister Ghazali Shafi was also warned the Dong Jiao people not to carry out this examination. You know what an examination is like? Not like a Kesas highway demonstration or something like that.
Yes.
It's carrying a very strictly patrolled examination. So it went ahead in 1975, and up to the present day, the Malaysian government has not recognized this certificate.
Yes.
So when I came back to this country in 1983, Dong Jiao, the leaders, especially Mr. Lim Fong Seng of Dong Zhong,
Yes.
asked me to take on this job of getting the Unified Examination Certificate recognized around the world because of my English education background.
Yes.
And which I did first with Americans, UK, Australia, New Zealand, even Japan and Singapore, And in 2 years, in 1985, we succeeded in getting at least 400 universities to
400.
To recognize the UEC. And it reached a stage in which, you know how high the ranking of NUS Singapore is.
Yes.
We reached a stage in which at every examination results time, the NUS officials would come actually knocking on the doors of the high achievers in this UEC and seduce them into going to Singapore University with laptops and all kinds of. So it reached that stage. So the initial stages of American universities and all that, it was a time of great liberalization of education, tertiary education around the world.
Yes.
And so they were very keen to have our students, and even in the UK as well. I remember sending the first lot of our students to the law school in Oxford, which is like a pre-university course, and that's where it all started. And up to today, it's history.
It's quite remarkable because like what you have explained, right, from 1975 until you started working in 1983, it was like within 10 years or within a decade after the examination has been implemented, we actually have universities all over the world recognizing it as an entry requirement. It's very remarkable and speaks a lot about the standard of UEC as an academic qualification. But what do you have to say, Professor? I mean, from what has been explained, maybe you have anything to add on historically, or how UEC qualification as a academic qualification?
Personally, I don't have any issue with the academic
qualification
side of UEC. I mean, I would like to say well done and congratulations, Shabas.
Yeah.
I mean, good for it. I mean, the UEC, good for them, the UEC fraternity. Yeah, personally, I don't have any issue with the UEC as far as the academic qualification is concerned.
But there's a but.
Yeah, I see UEC more of not as an academic issue. Maybe some people see it as a political issue, whereby Chinese interest versus Malay interest. But I see UEC as a sociological issue. I mean, more for want of a better term, I just call it a sociological issue. Meaning to say that we need to have a social review of the recognition. UEC by itself, I think there's no problem. I mean, it can go on. But once you want it to be recognized, then you see all these protests and so on. To me, if UEC is recognized and places in the varsities, in the public varsities are given to UEC candidates, actually those places are at the expense of STPM and SPM students. They stay put in the system to uphold whatever is worth of the system or whatever is worth in the system. These guys stay put there to uphold the system. So I think, the quota system is still there.
Yes.
Although the government say, we go on, merit, right? But still the quota system is there. If the quota system is not there, then you can find that, like courses like critical courses like dentistry or pharmacy or medicine, then you'll find they are only from one race, you see. So to me, I object the recognition of UEC because of this, that those places that will be given to UEC candidate if UEC is recognized will be at the expense of the SPM and STPM students. Okay. But if you were to look deeper, it is at the expense of Chinese SPM students and Chinese STPM students. So I think it's not fair. It's not fair. Because these guys, they stay put in the system to uphold whatever is worth of the system, especially STPM science. You see, Malay students, they are rooted to Asasi and Matrikulasi, and those courses are conducted in the English language. Whereas for STPM science, these students, they have to study in Bahasa Melayu. If not because of these non-Malay students, especially the Chinese student who uphold this STPM science, this STPM science would have been long gone. So I think the government should think of this justice or social justice, like the places in the varsity, there are not many, you know, and they should firstly be given to our students who stay put in the system. You see, for UEC students, they stay put in the system when they are in the primary school. When in the secondary school, they opt to go to this Chinese independent school. I think it's okay because we are a democratic country. We practice some, liberal policy in education. It's fine. So at the end, when they want to come into the system, I think it's really not fair. It's really not fair.
What do you have to say about yes? Yeah.
No, I think that's.
I have some questions, but yeah, I know.
Yeah.
I don't see how talking about fairness. I wonder how you keep out all the USC students since 1975 from the national universities, and then you say that if they were allowed to be admitted, it would be unfair on the system or the existing students. How could that be unfair when they have all been kept out? They are Malaysians. The parents have been paying taxpayers in this country, and then there's two things, quite a few things actually. First, you mentioned that you sort of mentioned as if there's just UEC and this so-called national system.
Yeah.
But you also mentioned something else, which you said that the MARA and the other systems use English.
Yeah.
Is that part of the system?
Of course, that's part of the system.
I know it's part of the system as it exists.
Yeah.
But in terms of the compatibility of that system to the so-called national education system, is it part of the system? I don't think it is.
Which
No,
one?
you first of all, you said that the system is a Bahasa Malaysia system.
Yeah.
But then you also have MARA, and for that matter, for UITM, etc., that use English.
Okay.
So why are they allowed to have this? Why do they have a foreign language as their medium of instruction? So there's two things. And then the other thing, which is crucial, is the question of how come you speak of the Malaysian independent Chinese secondary schools as if they do not belong to the system. Then we need to go to history. History says that in 1957 up to 1961, there was a national education system that used all our languages, and the examination syndicate of the Ministry of Education even ran the examination papers of the Chinese secondary schools in Chinese. You know.
Yeah.
So between 1957 to 1961. The Chinese secondary schools were part of that national education system. You know? So when we always say the social contract, social contract means independence contract again. So that's the 1957, 1961. So if we talk about national education system, that those independent schools were very much a part of the system. That is a fact. And
Okay, before independence.
No, they existed before independence. And then for the sake of the listeners who are not aware, the Chinese schools are going to be celebrating the 200th anniversary next year.
Yes.
And the secondary schools will be celebrating their 100th anniversary in 1923. I mean in 1923 it will be 2023. So that system has always been part of the national system. It was only ruled out of the system in 1961 with the passage of the 1961 Education Act.
Yeah.
So it was only ruled out of the system in 1961 and made it a very hard choice for the Chinese education lobby to choose whether they want to be part of a system.
Or out.
And let's be clear about this. The system in 1961 used English,
Yes.
not Bahasa Malaysia. So when we talk about national education system, everything must be Bahasa, etc. In 1961, it was in English. So the Chinese system, Chinese schools existed in 1819 and 1923 for the secondary system, had to decide in 1961 whether to remain part of the national system. So some 16 of them decided, or 14 or 16 decided 14 decided that they would stay out.
Yes.
Because they wanted to maintain their mother tongue education system, you know. So by doing that, the rest of them, which I think there was 85 secondary schools,
86,
86
Yeah.
at independence. So that's quite a big, a big dropout from the mother tongue education system. And and as a sociologist, Dr. Teo, you must also, I'm sure you sympathize with the fact that in many working class Malaysians, whether they're Chinese, Malays or Indians, their mother tongue education system is a more caring one for them. It makes, as a sociologist and an educationist, I'm sure you can see that somebody from a working class people from our background, or middle class background, we can take a second language, and I did English when I went to school. I could survive, do well, etc. But if you were from a working class background with no support from the home environment, I think the mother tongue education is very important, and that is why the Dong Qiaozhong decided in 1961, the 14 of them decided to stay put. And then in the 1970s, Lim Fong Sing, etc., started this revival movement.
Yes.
And more people, more schools were formed to build up the numbers until they became 60 in total. So this idea that the UEC is like an outlaw system, it's not very.
I don't think it's outlawed.
No.
It has its own pathway, you see.
No, but it's a very old pathway.
No, it has its own pathway. I think it's a very delightful pathway where you get to study in your mother tongue at the secondary level. I mean, the government allows it. Then you have now the New Era College that is at the varsity level. And you are in the private sector. I think that pathway is very, delightful, I should say. So, and those UEC students with this pathway, and they are in the private sector, actually they complement those students in the public sector. So I think I see it as really unfair, for those students who stay put in the system. They slog in the system. Some of the Chinese students with their bad bahasa, they choose not to go to the independent school for whatever reasons. They stay put in the Kebangsaan school, and they slog with their bahasa and all this. I think the government should appreciate, that they uphold the national system, the STPM system, especially the science system, because the Malay students are all not sent to Form 6 science. If ever they were to do science, they were sent to matriculation and Asasi. So these non-Malay students, and most of them are Chinese, they stay put in the system. So I think places in the university, there are only so many of these places, not many. And they should be given to these I don't want to use the word loyal, but they should be given to these students.
No, but if as an educationist, if we are serious about educational standards, I would think that the most important institution in any country's education and as well as a civil service system is the MQA, which is the accreditation system.
Yes.
So it doesn't matter where you come from. It doesn't matter where you come from, the Malay schools, or you come from Kazakhstan, or you come from China, or you come from Turkey, or you come from the Chinese independent schools. But I would think that Chinese independence should be given special privileges because they are Malaysian.
Yes.
But now we're only asking for, the government all these years, we're only asking for the opportunity to be assessed just like a student from Kazakhstan. And you are bringing in this question of how we're letting down the Chinese students who have gone through have been loyal to the STPM system.
Yeah.
No, but why do you see that when all these students from the UEC have been left out of the public sector universities, the public sector vocational technical institutes, the public sector civil service, etc., and you still don't find that unfair? You find it's unfair if they are admitted. Do you find it's unfair if the Kazakhstan students are admitted?
No, in the case of this, foreign international students, we should remember that they enter our public universities on this internationalization kind of thing, global internationalization scheme. So like I went to Berkeley, California, Berkeley, you see, and that I'm in that quota, international student quota, and my results are not as good as some of the American students, you see. So I think there are two different things here. It's a different ball game when foreign students come.
I'm saying that the UEC students are not even put in the international quota. They're not put in any quota at all.
No, they cannot be put in the international quota because they are Malaysians. You see.
Okay, but they're not. The certificate is not recognized by the government here, so they're not in any quota at all. And still, you say that they.
I think they have that pathway. You see. They have the pathway that UEC and Chinese independent school. To me, they have the privilege, to conduct secondary education in Chinese. That permission is given by the government. I think that is fair enough.
Like I said, Dr. Mahathir in 1975 says, you better not have it or else.
Of course, he say.
And Lim Fong Seng was detained with me in 1987 under Operation Lalang, detained without trial, and that is part of the reason why he was detained.
Of course, he say or else, but today, you see, after 43 years, UEC is still around.
Yeah, but it's not recognized. We were talking
tonight.
We're just talking about the recognition.
Yes, the recognition
it's here because of because if the government, UMNO has been talking about doing it with the Chinese schools ever since they were formed. But if they try to do with the Chinese schools and the Tamil schools, do you think this country will still be a peaceful country? I don't think so.
No, as far as I am concerned about this UEC recognition, I only see it shouldn't be recognized from that point of view that I say. Of course, they say if we were to recognize UEC, then it will jeopardize the position of the Bahasa Melayu. Yes and no. You have to really show the link how UEC recognition can jeopardize the national language. And they say if we were to recognize UEC, then we will jeopardize national unity. Of course, you have to show how, you see. So it's a yes and no kind of thing. I can agree and I can also disagree, but you must show how UEC recognition can jeopardize the position of Bahasa Melayu, how UEC recognition can jeopardize nationality. But when I see it from my point of view, this recognition, it is from this social justice. I see it from that. I think it's really unfair that if we were to recognize UEC, as I said, the places given to UEC candidates are actually at the expense of the Chinese STPM students. So
I don't know, but if we are working on the basis that our public education or our public tertiary education is at the expense of taxpayer, we pay money to support the system, we will hope the best get out of it. I mean, our graduates are the best. So I think I'm not, that's my point of view, because when I look at it, if we are fair and we include this pool of people from UEC to be part of them, eventually the best will come out of it, because I'm not so sure. I mean, when I look at it, I don't think there is something, because what you say about the STPM science students, they would have to fight for their place, and to fight for their place, they have to be better. Isn't it so?
of course,
And
of course.
I think they would have, I mean, the UEC school qualification holder will have to be subject to the same kind of, when they select these people to enter into public. But they are not even, given a chance to be, they are not even allowed to enter or to be recognized. So I think that's the justice bit, which I'm not very much convinced. I'm not so sure about.
I'm trying to say that
Yeah.
up to now, zero.
Yes.
Nil, no UC students have been allowed to
Sure,
enter.
sure.
So how could you talk about, if they went in, it would be unfair on the, you've kept out a whole lot of people, and then you say if they were allowed in drips, you don't have to have 1%, 5%, 10%, you say that it's unfair. Well, how is it unfair? Surely we're talking about education.
No, if let's say if you are in this position, you have a child who went through the national system, and his or her place is given to a UEC candidate just because of the quota system.
First of all,
How would you feel?
But
No, first of all,
he or she is not guaranteed a place. I mean, unless and of course he is good enough in terms of academic wise. If I think that's how they are being selected
That's right.
into public university.
I think if we're talking about justice, we have to question what is the justice of the quota system.
The justice of the quota system.
You're accepting a quota system as if it is a fact.
No, it's
quota
a fact.
system-
It's a fact.
No, I know, but the quota system came in as an amendment 8A to the Article 153 in that Constitution in 1971 after May 13, 69. And that has been imposed. So that is an abridgment of the social contract in 1957. And it has been abused so much all these years. So if you were a person who is so against injustice, you should be voicing against this injustice of the quota system, taking away the people you say have been unjustly or could be unjustly affected by if UEC students were admitted. You are accepting all these quotas from the other sectors, but but all this time, no UEC students will be coming in. But you say no, UEC cannot come in because you're taking away the quota system.
Yeah.
And this quota system has been abused so much since 1971. And have you said anything against that quota system?
I don't think it's abuse.
You don't think it's abused?
No.
Everybody says it's abused. Even the MCA says it's abused.
I work in the university, I know.
No, but the quota system doesn't just affect the university. It affects the whole tertiary system.
At least with this quota system, then you can see students from minority groups and so on can get places. So I think with this quota system, few places are given to the Chinese, few places are given to the Indians and so on. Of course, many places are given to the Malays. Of course,
if you look to see whether it's been abused, you have to look at the statistics.
Of course.
The statistics in 1971 of the operated numbers of Bumiputras and non-Bumiputras who have been admitted, all those years up to now, and you see how many. My wife used to work for Mara science schools and all that, and do you know what proportion of Bumiputera students in those institutions are, and you say it's not abused? I would ask Anwar Ibrahim today whether it's abused. He would dare not tell me it's not abused. So how can anybody say it's not abused? It's definitely abused. From the statistics, when I was a member of parliament, I asked for these statistics. That was in 1990, you know.
Yes.
I asked for these statistics, and already, not just admissions, but scholarships, loans, etc., all abused across. And it's not given to Malays from the kampongs, etc. Quite rich people, middle class people, people in the armed forces, etc.
Of course.
They are given. And how can you say it's not abused? It's blatantly abused. Today, the civil service, the armed services, the statistics is what, more than 95%, armed forces, 98% is Bumiputera. Is it not enough? Is it not enough for merit to be the basis for admission to the armed forces and the civil service? Is it not abused? I think it's grossly abused. And it's the same for the education institutions in this country. They've been abused. So, no, but we're talking about the UEC. Whether there's nil at the moment. Look at the statistics, that's important.
Okay.
Yes, yes,
You know,
yes.
The statistics shows from 75 until now, nil. No UEC students have been admitted to the...
Yeah, that's right.
And that's a fact.
Yeah, that's a fact. But I think in a previous show, someone was raising that, you know, maybe we should give a quota to the UEC student in accepting them to public university. But
No, I don't think they want
you
quotas, you
should
know.
be a quota at all for each and every Malaysian who is rightfully, I mean, they should be given an entry based on meritocracy. I don't know, but...
No, I think on the question of quotas, in the world arena, there are only two quotas given to two types of categories.
Yes,
One to women, one to indigenous people,
yes.
and it should be the same in this country. There should be no quotas given for any of our ethnic communities, the big ethnic communities like Malays,
Majorities.
Chinese, and Indians. They shouldn't. Because why? Because they are a class differentiation has happened in these communities for years. You know, you have huge rich capitalists in the Chinese community, Malay community, Tamil community, but in the indigenous communities, it's not.
Yes.
So Penans are still, you know, as community. So quotas are only given to indigenous peoples. Malays are not indigenous people in this country, you know.
Okay, I want to ask two things. You know,
Yeah.
let's stick to the UEC recognition. Dr. Kwok, you mentioned something about MQA. The UEC qualification has never been accessed by MQA
Never.
at all.
All we asked for. In fact, look, that's what Wan Aziza said. Wan Aziza and his PKR leaders came to visit Tong Chau Chong. I can't remember what year it was. When I was a principal of Univera College in
Univera, yeah.
in 2000, the first decade of the 21st century. And she said, this question is not a political question. It's, you know, just let the MQA, it's an accreditation problem. And of course, she's right. You know, so today, what has changed today? Why are we talking about the UEC today? The most important thing that is different today compared to the past, because this issue is, like you said, mentioned, every general election, the UEC is an issue. Why is this issue today different? Because the Pakatan Harapan has promised in its manifesto to recognize it. And even before the election, the Barisan Nasional also were ready to recognize it, except for SPM credit and history pass. You know, so this is the difference. You've already promised in your manifesto to recognize it, and now you say no. So who is saying no? BKR seems to accept it because Selangor and some other states, and like Wan Aziza, and I'm not sure about Anwar Ibrahim because he was in jail. DAP, of course, we know they've always said they recognize the UEC all the time. So it looks as if it's only the Prime Minister's party, the Pre-Bumi party, that it doesn't recognize it because it's called Pre-Bumi party. They're supposed to be, you know, still a race-based party. It looks as if it's only them. So but the important is you're reneging on an election promise, you know, and that is the difference from this time, from any time in the past.
Okay, this makes the question of recognition a little bit political, but maybe it has always been political, the recognition.
It has always been political ever since Dr. Mahathir told them to not to, you know,
Or else.
Yeah, or else, yeah.
Yeah. But like Professor, just now you mentioned something about whether it jeopardized the national language, and these are all this criticism or reasons that people have been raising to oppose to UEC recognition. You will say yes or no. Can you just share a bit about in what situation you will say that it will actually threaten the position of the national language
and national unity.
Yes.
I think it's more of a roundabout way. There is this perception or maybe misperception that Chinese students, whether they are from the UECs or from the Chinese primary schools, most of them master only one language, the Chinese language, although they were taught English and also Malay. I mean, for the good ones, of course, they will master the three languages on an equal basis, or maybe Mandarin is better than the other two. But on the average, there's this perception that Chinese students from Chinese schools, primary schools, or this UEC school, they only know Mandarin. See? So when they only know Mandarin, they only read Chinese newspapers. They only watch Chinese shows from Astro. So they mix with the Chinese only. And some say their world revolve. They look at China, they look at Hong Kong, and to a lesser extent, Singapore. So there's this Chinese world. So they are living in this Chinese world. So this is what I say yes and no to national language and also
unity.
Yeah. So I think if this is a misperception, then you have to correct the perception. If it is true, then I think we have to do something about it. Of course, some of the Chinese leaders say it's a burden, for small children to learn three languages at a very young age: Mandarin, English, and Malay. So they only know Mandarin because Mandarin is also their mother tongue at home. They do not know English, so maybe it's not too bad in this sense. But how come they do not know the national language? This is bad. So I think if this situation is true, then something should be done.
No, but the two things here, you talk about perceptions.
Yeah. I mean,
so perceptions are perceptions by different groups of people, The truth, the facts, what are the facts? The facts have to be brought up. And not just that, what are the facts about the rest of the country? The Burmese only UITM, the Burmese only Mara schools, the science schools, etc., 100% Malay, especially at UITM. Burmese only, no non-Burmese are allowed. They'll protest, they'll demonstrate if you allow it. So that is a fact. It's not a perception, because it appears in the newspaper, and you probably read Utusan, you can see the tone in there. So it's not a question of perception. Whether, in fact, the Chinese schools, whether Malay and English are compulsory, it's not a perception. It's a fact. It's compulsory. If you don't get your Malay and your English passes in your UEC, you don't get a certificate.
Yeah, we have to debunk some myth, because a lot of people think that in Chinese independent school, Malay is not a very important subject.
That's right.
But that's not the case, right?
No, like I said, my two children went to independent schools, and they took the SPM at Senior Middle 2. Can you take and get grade 1 in SPM without knowing Bahasa? I mean, it's the no-brainer, isn't it? As an educationist, you must know that you have to be not only be conversant in Bahasa, you have to be good at Bahasa to get a grade 1 in Bahasa. But that's what's happening in the Chinese independent schools. They're allowing their students to take the SPM as an insurance for at senior middle three, the fifth year of the secondary school. So that's only because Malay and English are compulsory subjects every inch of the way from primary to secondary schools. And that is not perception, that is a fact. So perceptions are not good to go by perceptions, and that is important. And then to say that Chinese schools are segregation is because you only need to point to the fact that the Mara schools, how many of them there are in UITM, and then you just look at the numbers. UITM has more than 100,000 enrollment throughout the country. The independent schools, there are how many people? 85,000. And with a lot of non-Chinese coming in. There are now about 100,000 non-Chinese, mainly Malays, in Chinese primary schools now. So that shows, what does it show? You have the Chinese school system that is open to all ethnic communities. You have a government system that is paid for by all Malaysian taxpayers that has the goal to say that it's only for Bumiputras. Paid by taxpayers including Chinese and Indians. So who is fair? And what sort of perceptions are we talking about, Who is fair?
No, coming back to the perception that Chinese students from Chinese schools can only speak Mandarin well and not the other two languages, most of them.
But what about Malays in Malay schools?
Malays in Malay schools.
We hear every day that...
Of course, they can speak Bahasa.
No. Just like they can speak Chinese and Tamil. But English, we heard the newspapers every day tells us what the English standard is not, just rubbish.
No. Now we talk about the national language. You see, not knowing the national language is something not good, right? As a citizen of this country, not being able to speak Bahasa Melayu well.
But what do you mean by well?
I mean, you are not proficient in the language.
Oh, I'm sure that's held up as what? First, against fact and perception. You have to have a survey to see whether that is true.
I think perceptions are correct, right? If they are not correct, then you call misperception. So when I say perception, that means they are correct. That Chinese students in Chinese schools, although they are taught 3 languages, they only master Chinese, and they don't.
No, you said they only master Chinese. That's not very.
I mean,
scientific.
most of them. Their Bahasa is no good. Their English is no good. But being not good in Bahasa is something serious, right? That is the national language of the country. I mean, as citizen of this country, one should have an adequate knowledge and adequate mastery of the language.
Okay, let's take a question of population as a whole. Okay, I can point to somebody like Justice Abdul Qadir, who the late Justice. He's one of the most famous.
Judge.
What's his Bahasa like? Do you know what his Bahasa level is like? He doesn't. His Latin is better than his English.
Oh, okay.
He writes in Latin. His obituary, when his wife died, he opened the newspaper. The obituary is in Latin. His Latin is better than his English, and his Malay. You think his Malay is that good, and would compared to a independent school student? That's a fact. But he's justice. He's one of the most famous justices. His book just came out. He's well known throughout the Commonwealth of the world.
Yes.
Is he how would you label him? A patriotic, true Malaysian who cannot speak Bahasa properly?
Maybe.
Yeah. Would you say? And then there's a student from UEC who's not a high achiever, probably can't get. And you look at the two of them, and maybe the UEC student might speak better Bahasa than Justice Abdul Qadir, So, but what are we using these examples to show what? What about the different? All these UMNO leaders, do they all speak Malay in the house? These are facts and perceptions. The perception that yes, the old prime minister was a kleptocrat, etc. Is he the only kleptocrat? The police raid his house, etc. You know, we will raid all the other houses. So that's perception. The fact is, do they or do they not? So we cannot use an example of using different people, their mothers, their children, children who are so many of these UMNO leaders. They send their children to boarding school in the West. What are they speaking now? You see some in the media, in our Malaysian media now. They come back, working in Astro Awana or whatever it is, and they all spoke English in the house. The English, that bahasa is crap. They say so in the program. But they are running the media. You know, they are the celebrities today. They'll compare their Malay with a poor achiever in the unified exam in the Chinese independent school. Who is better at Malay? But why do you say that the Chinese student from UEC is not a good enough Malaysian because he can't speak Malay properly? And this other Malay from Oxford and Cambridge can hardly speak Malay at all.
Both are equally bad.
No, but it's not. But no, but what is the purpose of doing those comparisons? Surely the important thing to do is to, because we are only talking here today about the UEC,
Yes.
is to let the MQA do an accreditation of that certificate. That's all we care about. You know, all these people who are talking about, it's just hypocritical because they send their children to boarding school in Britain and Switzerland and everywhere.
Yeah, we're talking about this unity, right? There's this article or there's this take issue by Ikram, which I find is very interesting because what they say is if you want to fix the problem of unity, you should let the UEC qualification holder enter IPTA, because this is where they don't live in their own world anymore, quoting what you mentioned just now, where they can actually mingle with people from different races and have the opportunity to use their national language. What do you think about this suggestion?
I think we should have we should start in school, not at that. We should start earlier, not at that level. You know, when you allow UEC candidates to enter the varsity, then only you say national unity begins. I think you should start at the school level, like make sure that there's not so much of ethnic segregation at a very young age. So right now you see our education system, the national school is almost 100% Malays. Chinese school, 80% Chinese, 20% non-Chinese. Agama school, 100% Muslims. And some go to private schools, some do homeschooling at home, some go to international school. So I think these are breaking us up.
Yeah,
we should think of a way. No, I think mother tongue education is okay, but agama school is okay, but they should be exception, you know, not the norm. But today it becomes the norm. People do not want to send their children to kebangsaan schools anymore. They want to send their children, Malay parents want to send their children to Chinese vernacular school. And
What's wrong with that?
I mean, it's not wrong, but the norm should be everybody should go to national school, but nobody is going to national school today.
Yeah, but the Chinese and the Tamil schools are also national schools. What?
Yeah.
National type schools.
Yeah, but what's it? Why? What is a type? Why does type have to?
Type means not fully national.
But what does it mean? What does it mean by saying not fully national? It's like saying you're Malaysian type.
No, the word type means not fully.
Yeah, I know.
I
it
mean,
doesn't work.
because
But what-
because the medium of instruction is not Bahasa Melayu, not the national language. It is the vernacular language. Therefore, it is called type.
Okay.
It is almost national school, but not national school. I mean,
But we're using the word national and equating it with Malay, isn't it? And when reviewing the history earlier on, I said that between 1957 and 1961, the so-called national
It's English.
was English.
I mean that was during
No, it's not.
the British times.
No.
you see.
57 to 61.
That were the remnants of colonization, I think. So 57
No, we were
to
independent
61.
already.
Of course, but still the remnants were there. Only after 61 onwards, with the Akta Pendidikan 1961, then they asked the 86 Chinese schools, secondary school.
Yep, still, and especially in
Yeah.
Sarawak, they
Yes.
carried on
Yeah.
with English for quite a
Yes.
few more years.
Yes.
So the question of national and national type, becomes a label that you use to, like saying you're a Bumiputra and non-Bumiputra. That kind of, what's the significance of that?
Not to say Bumiputra, not Bumiputra. When you say national school, it means they use the national language as the main medium of instruction.
Yeah,
And you say national type school, they do not use the Malay language as the main medium of instruction. They only teach Malay as a subject.
So would you call the Mara schools and all that, which you admitted earlier on, where they use English, would you consider them to be national schools?
They are not schools. They are not in the school system, you see. They
But
are.
are they national rather than... Do they belong to the national education system?
As far as I'm concerned, no. No, because they don't use. No, because they do not use.
That's interesting, because tomorrow, if you are having a newspaper, this will be headlines.
No.
Because Teo says that Mara and all do not belong to the national education. But it shows.
No.
It shows the contradiction in this so-called national label that you keep applying to. UITM use English, Mara and all use English, and then you categorize so-called national as BM, medium of instruction, which they're not. So if the Chinese schools use Chinese, the Tamil schools use Tamil, why should they be called national type? Why can't I call the Mara national type as well? Because they're not using Bahasa.
I mean, that is the government policy, you see.
No, we should challenge government policy. That is why we're challenging the government policy does not want to recognize UEC, and we want to...
Yeah, to me, in fact, Mara should be using the Malay language.
Yep.
Mara should be using the Malay language. But because of government policy, they use the English language.
Government policy?
Of course,
Where is the government policy that they use English?
Of course, it's because of government policy that they are using English.
No, government's policy says they should use Malay.
Special government policy.
No, there's no such thing as education policy.
The special.
Yeah.
Well, if we could allow such a special institution, which the medium of teaching is actually in English, why can't we allow other, like Chinese primary schools, the national type primary school, or even UEC, or even private independent school, to exist within the system?
Of course, they are allowed to exist within the system.
But we should give them the due recognition, no? Because like the way that Professor, you are actually, there is already a difference between national school and national type school, the way that you're putting it.
Yeah.
But we are following the same syllabus.
Of course, you follow the same. The language makes the difference there.
Okay, Chuck,
Yeah.
tomorrow's
Yes.
newspaper
Yeah.
will say that the new education ministry, new education minister is going to focus on kindness. His biggest policy change so far has been wearing black shoes instead of white shoes.
Yes.
But tomorrow he's coming up with a new one which says we got to inject kindness into our education system.
Okay.
Kindness, okay. If we allow what Dr. Teo says about not taking away the places of the Chinese who are being in the STPM. We are only saying, to be kind, Education Minister, can we be considered for the quota of the foreign students like Kazakhstan and Turkey, etc.? They won't even allow that because they won't allow that. That's what we're saying all this time. All these years, the government will not even consider UEC students on that foreign quota. Because there's no UEC students since 1975, or since they started starting in Chinese secondary schools, who have been allowed to go into a public sector university or technical college. We're saying, okay, fine. We'll respect what Dr. Chiu said and not take away the quota of the Chinese schools in the SPM. But can we be considered for the foreign quota of 20%, 10%, whatever it is, 30%?
That is for the minister to consider.
Precisely, but that's what we're talking about now. But I think we shouldn't accept government policy because government policy is always shifting. They've been flip-flopping ever since. Even saying that the national education medium instruction should be Bahasa Malaysia.
Yes.
Yeah.
They've been flip-flopping ever since the national language policy. Mahathir wants to bring in science and maths in English and then it's taken back and it's been flip-flopping. It's not consistent.
And now we see that English is going to play a prominent place
That's right.
again.
Now they want to make it important again.
Yeah.
Make English great again.
Yes, but we do have a question from this audience, Deborah. Professor Teo, you are saying that not speaking or understand national language, it's a shame. What about to those Chinese who doesn't understand Mandarin? Isn't that considered as a shame for the ancestor? I think this again is something. Yeah.
Not knowing Mandarin. Of course, I know my mother tongue. I'm a Hokkien.
No, I don't think it's a very personal thing. I think
No.
today
I mean,
what we're discussing now is mainly about our rights to mother tongue education, which is part and parcel of why today we're talking about UEC recognition as well.
No, I mean, not knowing Mandarin and not knowing the mother tongue is two different things. You see. I mean, the Chinese are made up of various clans, Hokkien, Hakka, Fuchao, and so on.
Yes.
So, of course, you should know your mother tongue if you are Hokkien. To know Mandarin, you have to go to school. You see, but to me, as a citizen of this country, you should have an adequate knowledge and a good mastery of the national language. It's sad that there are so many citizens in this country who hardly can speak the national language. This is a serious national matter, not taken up by any politicians because they'll lose their career. But this is very serious, You still can find citizens of this country, Chinese.
Yeah, but like I said, including the elite in the Malay community, who speak only English and can hardly speak Bahasa.
Of course they can speak Bahasa, that is
No.
their mother tongue.
They can't. Like I pointed to this fact about Justice Abdul Qadir, one of the top.
Those are old-timers, I think.
What are old-timers and new-timers? And there are some new-timers in the media today. I won't mention names. You listen to the rhythm on radio and TV. They are the elite from the Malay community who have been brought up in a boarding school in England.
Yes.
And they come back and they tell us in the media that the Malays not up to par. They are ashamed of it.
I think this is real bad, We fail in nation building if this is the case. We fail in nation building. So you can't find citizens in any other country who cannot speak the national language.
But do you really think that by recognizing UEC, it is actually impairing our nation building?
No.
Because we are directly we are directly relating, like, not you are from UEC, you don't speak the national language.
No, I don't have issue with this UEC
Recognition.
To me, if we were to recognize UEC, I only see that we are unfair.
No, but let's talk about
we are unfair to those Chinese students who stay put in the system.
No, I think we
to uphold whatever is worth of the system. I repeat that.
No.
So UEC to me is not has no academic issue. I don't have academic issue, no political issue.
No, we've covered that ground already.
Yeah, yeah.
But this ground that you talk about integration,
Yeah.
you have UEC students, their certificate is not recognized in this country, so they have to go to
Overseas.
Taiwan, China, America, Russia, even Russia. We've got
Yeah,
students going to, and even some going to private college, etc.
Singapore.
Whereas, recognizing them gives them an opportunity to integrate with the national society, the civil service, the public, your university, UKM, etc.
Yeah.
Isn't that a good thing for integration? First of all, if your perception is that they can't fit in, they won't be able to get in because they can't speak Malay, whatever, that'll up to be proven. You recognize them and see whether they can get in or not.
No, they can't speak Malay. They can use sign language
Yes,
and
yes,
so on.
yes.
Of
No,
course,
no, you
I
have
mean,
to-
just joking, but
For working purposes.
yeah, but
Your accreditation, you have to get through the accreditation of your university. Your university is going to admit these students if it is recognized. You have your procedure, haven't you, to admit students. Then you get a chance for the UEC students to mix with your students in UKM. What's wrong with that?
yeah, in fact, UEC is recognized by the government for the purpose of entering this maktab perguruan, you see.
Only that. So that they can become Chinese school teachers and become...
Yeah, but I mean, for a start, they give these opportunities to these UEC candidates, but I'm still adamant with that is unfair. I really see it's akin to you are not in the queue at the traffic light.
No, but for years...
No, you are not in the queue for at the traffic light. When the light is green, then you just go. I mean, the police traffic say you go. So those in the queue will find it. No, you are sending a very different signal, that...
No, sorry.
Now you used to talk of a rule of law, but you...
No, first of all, it's very hypocritical on the government side to recognize the UEC only for the teaching colleges.
Yeah.
Mainly because there's a great shortage of teachers in the Chinese schools, and you're recognizing it. So that means that the government is not principled on their stand about the so-called national education policy on the national education system, right? Second, if you can accept them into the teaching colleges, why can't you accept them into other institutions? You've already broken that so-called principle about national education system.
One of the reasons why, I mean, not me, but certain quarters are saying that UC shouldn't be recognized because of the medium of instruction, which is in the Chinese language.
No, but we're saying accredit us on the basis of what you see. If you think that these students are only school in Chinese, of course you don't have to consider it. You don't just reject them. But the accreditation, that process goes more than that. You got to see whether the syllabuses, etc., etc., and then you can impose a barrier, like saying you have to have SPM credit in Malay, which you impose on the Chinese and the Kazakhstan students, I'm sure, So why can't they? You can't do the same with the UEC students. All you have to do is to ask the MQA to accredit the UEC, whether it's up to par, whether they're as good as the secondary schools in Malaysia or not. If they are, you impose an SPM credit Malay for those who want to enter your university.
They have done that.
No,
No,
they don't even want to recognize it.
Yeah, they stated 2 requirements, right, for the UEC.
No, the Barisan National in the manifesto
Yes.
had 2 requirements: Bahasa credit,
And,
history pass.
Yes.
PH, Pakatan Harapan, no conditions,
Unconditional.
just like they have done in Selangor State, and Sarawak.
Sarawak as well.
Yeah. What is your former chief minister said is stupid not to recognize,
Yes.
because he sees it as a wise man, So that's what we're talking about.
Yeah.
In the past, right, when is the closest that we have come to where UEC is being recognized? Is this the closest?
The closest is
general election?
The closest has been individual states, Sarawak, Selangor, and I think Malacca.
But on federal level?
No,
Never.
Only for
only
the
teaching college.
I mean the teaching
college.
for the Mandarin option.
Just a reality check, right? If the government were to impose some condition, do you think that Dong Jiaozong will accept such conditions?
They have accepted the condition of the SPM credit.
Okay.
They accept
BM
that.
credit,
Yeah,
right?
which is right. You go to UK to study, you need to get IELTS
Yes.
in certain band. Go to America, you go to get your.
Yeah, and in
whatever you
actual
call
fact,
it.
you just have to sit for the BM
That's
paper
right. You
itself.
just sit for the BM. Yeah. Most of them would know how to take the SPM Malay they already do it the whole certificate in Malay. So doing it in Malay is Malay language is easy.
Okay, moving on.
Yeah.
That's quite you have been promoting for the recognition of UEC. When do you think that this will come to an end? That it will.
I think it should come to an end at
With
this
this government.
with this election that has just gone by, because the government made a promise, and they're all God-fearing people, they're all Muslims and very staunch Muslims and Christians and all that. So you have a promise. If you're a parent and you promise your child something, can you break that promise? Telling us that they didn't expect to win is not an excuse.
Yeah.
Dr. Mahathir is now saying, "Oh, we didn't expect to win. That's why we can't
deliver
the promise." That is not good enough. I'm sorry. That's why it's the closest we've ever come to having the UEC recognized is this particular election.
But why do you think it has time and again this particular issue has been politicalized or has become a credit?
It has always been politicized. It's always been politicized because of the whole
The
UMNO Malay agenda, wanting to make Malay the ultimate objective of having Malay as the only medium of instruction, which is contrary to the Constitution. The Constitution, Article 132, states very clearly that although Malay is the national language, other mother tongue is allowed.
Yeah.
And also, because of Constitution was founded in 1957,
Yes.
we have to use the closest education ordinance of 1957. Also says the same thing.
But now they will always bring out the Education Act 1996.
Well, that's already back. But you know how the UMNO and everybody likes to talk about the social contract. What social contract are you talking about except for 1957? You've broken so many. Like I said, the quota system is a broken social contract in 1971, where you amend the Article 153 with an 8A. To me, that's a reneging on the social contract, because you're adding on something that wasn't at independence. So it's not the social contract.
What about you, Professor Teo? What do you think? What is the best outcome of this whole issue for you personally? What's your take?
To me, UEC has a delightful pathway.
And this pathway meaning that I'm
Yeah,
wanting
yeah.
to ask you, so meaning I attend a private independent school and then I go overseas for my...
No. I mean, okay, you are given the opportunity to have your secondary education in the Mandarin language, then you, in this country, and then you have the opportunity to study in the Chinese IPTA New Era, and then you work in the private firm. I mean, that is the pathway. It's not prohibited and prevented by the government. I mean, the government gives you the opportunity to have education in the secondary level. I think this is one of the most outstanding democratic features in this country. You know? We can live as a Chinese from birth till death, not in any other country. Not in any other country. I mean, you can have your Chinese name, you can have the Chinese education, secondary education, Chinese tertiary education, you can work in a private firm. I mean, I think this is the most outstanding democratic feature in this country. You can live as a Chinese, not in Indonesia, not in Thailand, not in Cambodia.
But as a Muslim, I also can live. Live in UK, be entitled to my rights and attend the school that I want. I think if we are comparing to different type of democracy, we will rather to be compared to a much more advanced one instead of a lesser examples. That's what I think.
Because this is our country. If let's say you want to migrate, then it's a different thing. You see,
that's why I hope my country to be better.
I think it's not bad, right? By and large, if you were to compare the Chinese in Thailand and the Chinese in Malaysia. In Thailand, you can't live as a Chinese, you know, although you are Chinese. You can't have a Chinese name, no Chinese primary school even. But in Malaysia, you have Chinese primary school, you have Chinese secondary school, you have Chinese tertiary education in this country, all permitted by the government. But of course, on a different pathway, the private pathway. As I said, you complement those in the public pathway. There are a lot of potentials, you know, for UEC in the private pathway. You should be proud of yourself that as a private entity, you get recognition all around the world. You should be proud of yourself.
So why are we fighting for recognition of the UEC in the public sector?
Yeah, I mean...
I think that's why Professor cannot understand why we're still fighting for it.
Mainly because if you are caring enough, if you want to be like the education minister, want to be kind, you would also consider Chinese people who are not as affluent as you and I, you know, who cannot afford to go to Taiwan or China, who can afford to go to INTI or HELP or whatever. You have a chance to go to a local private sector university or even UITM where they can, you know, where they can make a life for themselves, a career for themselves. Otherwise, what they become? Pirate CD sellers. You think like Mahathir is right?
I think if because they want to have Chinese education at all costs, you see.
I don't think so. I think that.
I mean, that's why they go to they take this UEC, but I mean, to me, why at the end of the day you want to come back into the national system? As you said, I think...
No, they didn't want to be outside the national system.
No, they want to come back into the public university. Is it because of the fees? They are much cheaper.
That's one of them.
But I think it's not fair for those Chinese students who stay put in the system.
Going back to that.
No, I mean, of course, if you are a parent, you know, if you are a parent, your children study in the government school, and they are deprived.
But this is the first time I've heard of the sectors of the Chinese community opposing the... I've never heard of this. I honestly haven't heard of this. I never heard that there's sectors of the Chinese community who are opposing students from the Chinese independent schools from joining the public sector.
Why not? Because why not? Because their places are deprived of by this
Okay, like I said, considers for the foreign quota, 10%, 20%, 30%. They are not even prepared to do that. So that's
if you say if UEC were to take up the foreign quota, then I think it's a different ball game. But
why not?
I mean, I can agree with that, but not to take the Malaysian Chinese quota.
No, but the Malaysian government is not even prepared to consider that.
For the international quota.
Yes.
I mean, that is not for me to answer. I'm not in the
No,
government.
but when we talk about the whole issue of recognizing the UEC revolves around accepting the UEC as a certificate for consideration, like a student from Kazakhstan or China or Turkey or India. The government refuses to see that, to allow that even. So you are worse than a Kazakhstan person. You know, you're not even considered.
But do you agree with me that those STPM Chinese students, these UEC students should not even try to.
I don't know. To me, the whole system is unequal. Like I said, with this Mara system and all this quota system for the Bhumi Putras, the whole thing is rotten.
Okay, just put that aside. As a Chinese parent, you have children who go to the national schools, first to the national type school for 6 years. After that, they go to Form 1 up to Form 5 in the national school, whether it's Chonghua, Jenis Kebangsaan or whatever, and then they take STPM. They stay put in the system. I mean, of course, you do not want your children's places to be given to this UEC who stay out of the system. They choose to stay out of the system for what? For whatever reason.
Consider them for the foreign quota.
If for the foreign quota, I have no argument with that.
I don't think there's actually such a thing as a whatever quota it is.
No, but to me, I have spoken to a few Chinese parents. They could see my viewpoint. Before this, they're very not too happy with me. But when I explained to them, they could see the logic there. That something is akin to, in the queue at the traffic light. Their children are in the queue at the traffic light. These UEC students are from the outside. Then at the traffic light, when this is green, the UEC student cross, and then they are stuck behind.
No, but you're accepting this perspective of unfairness from a perspective of, like you started earlier on saying we should be very proud of ourselves because we're not like Indonesia, we're not like Thailand, etc. We should be very proud of ourselves. Yeah. But if you accept yourself in that pathetic kind of situation, where you know that in 1965 500,000 Chinese were killed in Indonesia, are we supposed to feel that? Are we supposed to feel that we're lucky because we're not all killed?
Maybe.
There's quite a few hundreds killed in the May 30th.
Yeah.
Are we supposed to feel very lucky that we were not all killed? You know? So how can you talk about unfairness when you allow injustice or unfairness to exist in this country? Instead of talking about how we can make the education system better, you're talking about this STPM quota for non-Bhumi Putras, and we have to guard it, lock, stock and barrel, and not allow anybody else to get in. We're not even talking about that, like I said. We're talking about recognizing a certificate as a creditable academic qualification so that they can make our university a more creative, a more diversified, a better education system than we have previously, so we can move forward as a nation.
I think both points are valid. Your points, my points.
No, but
ultimately
we're talking about.
I could see your point, and I hope you could see my point too. Like, is the unfairness for the Chinese students to stay put in the system.
I think, Professor Teo, your empathy towards the STPM non-Burmese students, right, are very much because they are already a victim of the system. They have no, they can't go to UITM. They are part of the victim of the quota. You're just trying to make them a little bit better by propositioning that the UEC should not be recognized. But the root of the problem is it's an unfair system. Whether if based on your analogy that people are cutting queues, right? Actually, all of us are in queue. Whether I'm whether you're STPM school, whether you're attending STPM, whether you're a UEC student, or whether even if you are a Malay from Kampong, if you don't get into Mara, you are part of the queue. So I think what Dr. Kwa is saying that it's this. All of us who are in the queue, who wanted to have a better life through our education, get a chance. And I think that's the root of it when we talk about UEC recognition. I don't know. That's what, from the differences between both of you, I come to this conclusion.
Yeah.
Actually, there's a question from our audience, which I think Dr. Kwa can answer, but you have already answered. From Chong Simon, he asks this in Chinese: why must we recognize the UEC qualification? Which you have been trying to answer for the whole night.
First, the thing is that the question of the brain drain.
Yes.
You have to think about. You want this country to grow, or you don't want this country to grow. We have set up a group called the Talent Corps to go all over the place, foreign countries to bring back Malaysians. And here we have a system that doesn't want to recognize the UEC, so that they're all forced to go to Taiwan, China, wherever, and then they'll stay there. Like I said, the person who invented the thumb drive is a graduate from our system. And he became a tycoon in Taiwan when he could be. He's come back to invest in this country. But there's something like 500,000, if I'm not mistaken, since 1971. Is that not important to this is what Mahathir has just gone overseas to Britain, I think, asking the Malaysians to come back to this country. But will they come back?
I think as far as this brain drain thing is concerned, we have to also look at the pull factor, you see, because capable human resources, when they leave this country, they go for better pay, better prospect. So there are also some Chinese STPM and SPM students who got offers from the Malaysian government, good offers, but still they reject those offers. They take up offers from other places. So I think this brain drain thing is maybe another ball game.
No, but then again, you can't look at these things in terms of perception. You like to use the word perception. Things like this, you have to look at the statistics. How bad is this brain drain? When did it start? What were the years of when the brain drain was at its worst, where people left and didn't come back? It happened after May 13. Happened with the new economic policy in 1971. The statistics speak for themselves. Besides the pull factor, this where you treat this.
Of course, you have the push factor and also the pull factor, but I think the pull factor is more important than the push factor, as far as this brain drain.
The push factor is important for something else that we haven't talked about yet, which is the question of inter-ethnic cultural understanding. By having all these policies of discrimination, the push factor is more important than the pull factor. And this is what I mean by look at the statistics from the 71, when the non-Burmese were treated like, even people from my own family, who used to be, my brother-in-law was a professor in Malayan University, in the medical faculty. And because of the discrimination with the quota system and all that kind of stuff, putting his students above him, all this nonsense, he left. And he wasn't the only one who left. hundreds and thousands left. That's a push factor being more important than the pull factor, you know, because you can't live with that kind of blatant discrimination, that kind of indignity, you know. People have certain dignity, you know.
Yes.
You know, so that's a push factor.
Okay.
But I think the worst thing is, besides the brain drain,
Yes.
is the effect it has on national unity, a question of interethnic understanding. So it's not a question of saying, oh, the universities are polarized. They're still polarized.
Yeah.
Not because of, why is it polarized? Not because you know, Chinese students stay by themselves or Tamil students stay by themselves. They're polarized because this country doesn't treat them as equal, doesn't treat them as Malaysians. But you say that they should be lucky because it's worse in Indonesia or it's worse in Thailand. It's not like that. People don't look at their lives as if it was Israel. And it's not true about you know, you go to, I studied and lived in Britain for about 10 years. And I've always been and when I was there, I was a supporter of anti-racist policies and all that. And I moved around the communities there. Malay communities, Indian communities, Arab communities, etc., Pakistani communities. The same. You live in the communities that you feel comfortable in, you know. The British are the ones who say, you know, you are not British enough, you know. And if you went to Britain, probably say the same thing about you. What does it mean about? What does it make about human dignity? What does it make about your status as a human being? Same with this country. Why should the Chinese or Tamil or some other person have to prove that they are Malaysian only because they are superb at Malay? When, like I said, a judge, top judge, or elite Malay cannot do the same. So it's a non-issue. This question that you have to be very fluent in Malay before you can be considered to be a patriotic Malaysian or whatever it is, you know.
I think one of the requirements, not the only requirements.
No, I mean, it's only a hopeful and something that we encourage in the Chinese schools. Remember, the independent schools have been running in these regular bilingual,
I think
bahasa, you know, elocution and storytelling
Yes.
competitions with their bahasa pustaka. They've been doing that since I joined them in the early 80s. They're still doing it. So the encouragement is always there. That's the responsibility of the school authorities, the Dongjiaozhong leadership. You know, that's what.
if the Chinese schools can achieve, like, you know, all the students are equally good in 3 languages, then I think there's no issue with Chinese education in this country. You know, like we want to produce people like Ong Ti Kiat, you know, Lim Wan Eng, or Wee Ka Siong, good at 3 languages, equally good. But as I said, the perception is Chinese school students, they're only good in Mandarin only.
No, but why talk about perception? Talk about the facts and the statistics.
I think it's
no, but at the same time,
also the fact.
at the same time,
I mean,
as a sociologist, I'm sure you appreciate that whatever society you are, Chinese, Tamil, Malay, you'll have your different classes. You'd really expect the Malays and the Chinese and the Tamils from the working class to be good at 3 languages.
No, but the trend is that Chinese students from Chinese schools can only speak Mandarin.
Whereas the Malays from the national schools,
Of course, they cannot speak English, but they can speak Malay, you see, because that is their mother tongue. So that's so happened.
yeah, but their mother tongue.
Of course.
That is what Chinese and Tamil schools are all about. It's because it is their mother tongue. It is the language that they use when they are born. Their mother is talk to them in that language, and that is the most efficacious way to learn, to pick up knowledge. And it's also what happens at the end of the primary school. They go to secondary school in a national school using Malay. as an educationist, we have to be, if you are caring, you're kind, like the education minister said, you have to find out what happens to these students when they go to a national school where they're using a language medium which is not their mother tongue. If you're from a middle class, you do all right. You've got tutors or whatever to help your brothers, sisters. But if you're not from the middle class, you're working class, you go to a national school, you're lost. So you look at the statistics on the failures from these national schools of Chinese and Tamils in the national schools. You find that the casualty is very high.
Yeah.
So what do you do about them? That is the only reason that the independent schools were formed, to ensure that even I in New Era College as the principal, because we are English educated, we in a forum or whatever, as English educated people, people can speak very well, that's true. But you go to to their mother tongue environment, you'll be surprised that their fluency, the way they put up a point, their debating skills, etc., is completely different. And that is important. In the same way in which my daughter went to a girls' school, in an independent girls' school, that is also important. Because in the girls' school, you can see that the way in which the girls manage to have that sense of achievement,
Yes.
Without the boys around. And there's so many people in the media all went to the BBC the BBC correspondent Wat Badawi, the Sudanese, she went to an all-girls school in Oxford, and it trains them. And it's the same thing with mother tongue education. You go to the mother tongue education so that you train your confidence in imbibing knowledge as well as in expressing yourself with confidence. That's all. If your English and your Bahasa is just as good, fine. That's why in the independent schools we have trilingual elocution contests every year. It's very big in the Chinese papers. You can see that every year. We hope that students can be like that, but you cannot hope that all students of all classes can be like that. It's impossible.
Yeah, it's
Not even
impossible.
in America or UK can you find all classes of people who are equally good in English and French and German. It's not, you can't have that. But we hope. That's the role of an education system, like in Finland, etc., where they encourage all the students to achieve all along the way. And that is what we are supposed to be trying to do with our education system, is to create an education system that produces creative people. But it's a hope and it's an encouragement, putting on the institutions. That's why I always advocate education precincts, where Chinese school, Malay school, Tamil school, and even English schools. I think that a lot of families in PJ and Johor Bahru in Malacca, they speak English at home. So why can't English be their mother tongue? So we can have English school for them, because I know that in Kelantan or in Perlis, nobody's going to ask for English schools. So why can't they have that? But we can put them together in an education precinct where we share the best facilities, the best sports facilities, the best theatres, the best IT facilities, the best sports facilities, and then we can all have...
No, we have that. We call...
Vision School.
Vision
But
School.
Vision Schools are not accepted by the Dongjiao Zhong.
Yeah.
Because the schools lose their autonomy. I'm saying we have the same Chinese and the same Tamil schools with their own autonomous bodies, autonomous schools, put them together in a precinct. But which schools are built depends on the local council, the local municipal council. And which school is if you come to a community where there are more people asking for Chinese schools, then you build Chinese school for them. The Tamils want a Tamil school, you build a Tamil school for them. And if there's any demand for English school, build an English school for them. Maybe there might be more in Sarawak, I don't know.
Yes.
And then you put them close to each other where they share the same facilities. But you still have a principal in the Chinese school, you still have a principal in the Tamil school. They carry on as if they were in the previous environment, but they share the facilities and they have more chances of integrating, you know. But it's very different from the vision school.
The vision school. Is, yeah.
So these are, and because local councils are elected, then now they're not elected, but they're supposed to be elected. That is how elected council can depoliticize education. No longer I'm not saying yes or no to this school or that school. It will only be decided by the local council based on their survey of what people want in different parts of the community. And that, I think, is a good way to depoliticize education in this country, de-racialize the education system.
But the officer running the education department is also a problem. I'm not so sure. I mean, when you talk about racialization and policies that has been made, it's not made one day or two, and the same people are running the show, even if we have already changed the government. I think that's one of the roadblock that we have towards a much more unified education system.
But the policies are supposed to be decided by cabinet.
Yeah.
And especially the policies have been laid down in the Buku Harapan or Pakatan Harapan. You know, that is the difference from before.
Yes.
Yeah. I mean, the civil servants are still there, but that's a separate matter. But the policy has to be according to their Buku Harapan.
Interestingly, we have such. I mean, I have this very. This to me is like a very fruitful evening listening to you both talking about education policy in Malaysia. It's already 1.5 hours.
Oh. How long is this, the normal?
1 hour.
Oh.
Yeah, so we overrun for 30 minutes, but it's good because we actually get a different viewpoints from both sides of the divide. But I actually like to share this. Both of you might be very familiar with it, but when I was doing the research for the show, I came across this in our Education Act, our education philosophy. Education in Malaysia is an ongoing effort toward further developing the potential of individual in a holistic and integrated manner so as to produce individuals who are intellectually, spiritually, emotionally, and physically balanced and harmonious based on a firm belief in and devotion to God. Such an effort is designed to produce Malaysian citizens who are knowledgeable and competent, who possess high moral standards, and who are responsible and capable of achieving a high level of personal well-being, as well as being able to contribute to the betterment of the family, the society, and the nation at large. This is in the entitlement of the Act itself. I don't want to move down a little bit for downwards will be where it has to be implemented through the policy and national language. But I think this paragraph itself, it's quite wholesome in a way that it narrates what an education system is. And because a lot of people, when they talk about UEC recognition, they want to, they will say that whether it fulfilled the aspiration of the nation in terms of our education philosophy. But looking at this itself, I think it's very complete, even without talking about the language that it should be conducted, the teaching medium. So I wanted to conclude our discussion today with this, and hopefully one day soon we will come to see a very good ending to this issue of UEC recognition, or the
That's right. Now they say that it has to be decided in 5 years or something like that.
Yes, after a holistic
so let's see whether,
study.
Yeah, I don't. Yeah.
Well, let's see.
Yep.
All right. Okay. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much. Yeah.
Thank you. 各位观众朋友，非常感谢今晚的收看。稍后呢，我们会在就是进行一些翻译，再配上字幕，所以留守百格，你会看到更完整的节目。晚安，我们再会。
Oh, so you're